Well, ladies and gents, some of you might have seen today that Brendan Guinan from fiorbhia Farm has a series of 3 videos up. One making some complaints towards myself and calling me out to do a podcast with him. A second one airing his grievances with a lady that recently spoke up at his premiere in Portlaoise Saturday night just gone. And the third one then, he was trying to explain to people but didn't get around to explaining it in the video, how on a regenerative farm he's chemical free but yet still uses products and so on and so forth that might have chemicals in them. You can work that one out for yourselves. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to highlight all these problems in this video. And he also airs out the fact that I've had him blocked on social media, and it's important to note that I've had him blocked for quite some time. Reason being, I just didn't want to see him on my socials anymore, considering the bad beef we had going back to last October. So 29th of November last year, I highlighted that I had bad dealings with a man who was supposed to deliver and pack my beef for me. I spoke about it on the same podcast with James Conway, the 29th of November 2024. But I didn't name Brendan, or I didn't name his business. But it would have been quite clear. Anyone who knew Brendan would have known I was talking about Brendan at the time. And I was reached out to by a lot of people at the time who'd had previous problems with Brendan. And even prior to me and Brendan having any business dealings, I on occasion have shared reels of his going back in the past, trying to give him a help out and whatnot. And anytime I would share content of his, people would reach out and say certain issues regarding his past, particularly around the aspect of money and money being owed and quite large debts. And to the most part, look, I ignored them, and I explain in the recent podcast why I ignored them and so on and so forth. So we won't go into that. If you want to know the pure details of that, go check out the podcast with myself and James Conway. It's on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you like. I also have the clip. If you go back a couple of slides, you'll see there is a clip of me with the full snippet. I suppose, you know, criticising Brendan's we'll say consultancies out on farms, criticising, I suppose, a couple other things to do with him. Now, we'll flash forward a couple of months ago. I had more people reach out to me with issues regards his own beef and things like that, which kind of was, you know, tweaking alarm bells in my head and kind of making me a little bit sorry that I hadn't highlighted his name on the podcast that time. But I was trying to move on and get on, and we'll say that's just business and things go wrong, and I fully understand that. But it's not a good enough excuse with what Brendan is using it for. So, a long-term follower and friend of the Long Acre page here sold cattle to Brendan last November, and they recently came to me probably about a month ago and explained that they had not been paid for those cattle since November. Now, it's a large sum of money. It was over 20,000, and there was no sign of it being paid. There was a lot of false promises week on week on week. This person, you know, it's not that they can spare over 20,000, certainly not. And it was only when there was real pressure put on this person, real pressure put onto Brendan by this person and others at a meeting going back last Thursday night, that he eventually coughed up more of the money. And then with the threat of a protest at his premiere on Saturday night, he coughed up the balance on Saturday. Okay, now I was aware of this for the last couple of weeks, so I highlighted it on the podcast, you know, with the idea of using it to hopefully get Brendan to pay. And it seems it was definitely a cog in the wheel that did help him pay in the wind up, because the podcast released on Friday. Now, you know, money to one side, my grievances to one side with Brendan. There are clearly and is a lot of history regards Brendan owing people money. And I don't think he's in any position to come online and question people's integrity, question, you know, how dare they say something about him, when a lot of it is actually public knowledge and ongoing court cases. There's one man reached out to me here who's owed €87,000 by Brendan, going back to Brendan's haulage days, and I have a couple other stories very similar to this that have been sent in recent months, and particularly since Friday, since the podcast release. It seems it's also released a lot of skeletons out of the closet. But as I said, this is an ongoing case, and Brendan's out, you know, proclaiming as if he's innocent, making up excuses as if this isn't a regular occurrence, when clearly it is a history. And the way history goes is, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck, and the evidence is all there. Now, I've also had a lot of his mentees reach out in the last couple of months complaining that they paid what I would consider pretty decent sums of money, €500, €1,000, €1,500, for mentorships, for consultancies, where Brendan arrives out to a farm for an hour and a half to 2 hours, tells you how to farm, charges you €500. There'll be extra fees of maybe €1,000 for phone calls and so on and so forth. And with a lot of hopes, promises and kind of dreamy ambitions as to what you can do on your farm, he'll tell you how to implement infrastructures and so on and so forth. And it's just not good enough. And it can't be one-off things when I have the amount of messages that have come into me, the amount of messages that have been sent to other people since this is all aired. Brendan, you're in no position to be questioning why people are saying things about you. It's that simple. You've made this happen and nobody else, only yourself. You can use excuses that other people might have played a hand in it, but at the end of the day, you've kept on driving this on. I think the best thing you could have done in the last few days was stay quiet. It would have been all forgotten about. It was a storm in a teacup for a couple of days, and all I was concerned with was that to make sure that nobody else gets screwed out of money by you or doesn't get the service that they paid for. You also go on to explain about the chemical thing. You're on promoting how regenerative is so important, how organics are going to be the future, how regenerative is going to be the future, forest farming is going to be the future. And you're selling your free-range chickens out of the forest. Meanwhile, you feed them the likes of Red Mill's layers pellets, which we all know has GMO soy in it, right? Now, again, I'm going to come back to it. You're treating me like as if I've gone out and said things that are untrue about you when they're not. There are your other customers, your mentees. There are previous people from your previous businesses that you've had that are claiming you owe them large sums of money. So it's not one-offs, it's not unique, and it's definitely not slander or hearsay what I'm talking. These people are sending me their phone numbers. They're willing to go on a podcast against you, and they have questions for you. They'd like to know where their money is. They'd like to know where the product is that they paid for, the service they paid for. So don't be coming out with the poor mouth. Don't be coming out all nicey, sweetie, as if none of this has anything to do with you, or that it wasn't caused by yourself. I didn't want to come out and do this video. I highlighted something, and you could have took it on board and acknowledged it, but you didn't. And it's the same when you go back through our emails from all our correspondence. You never took proper acknowledgement of your failings. When I consistently sent you emails asking you to ensure that the boxes had 10 kilos in them, and you consistently sent them out incorrectly, knowing they were incorrect and filling me with bullshit. But I said, I'm over that. That's business. Business goes wrong. I gave you all the opportunities in the world. Anytime I tried to structure to make things easier and better for you, and just to clear the air, to make sure there was no misunderstandings, you would only ever have the decency to send me a thumbs up emoji in an email, and that's not business. That's not professional. And there's no excuse that gets around that. And as I said, Brendan, you have the emails the same as I do. You can show them to whoever you like, and feel free to do so, because at the end of the day, it'll only show people your own shortcomings. You went and you attacked the lady as well in one of your videos, who highlighted the other night that you hadn't paid somebody for over 8 months, who also pointed out the fact that you're promoting things that you're not really living. You're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk. Again, when it comes to all the chemical stuff and the different processes and procedures that come with regenerative farming, whether it's organic farming or forest farming. You could sit in the middle ground like someone like myself who likes to say I implement a few different things, but ultimately I just try and do a bit of common sense farming. But that's not what you're promoting. It's not good enough. And there's no point coming out crying, and there's no point going through all your videos that you've put up this evening, deleting the comments that you don't like, because I've had a couple of people keeping tabs on them and taking screenshots of the negative comments you've been deleting. And when I say negative, they're just criticising the facts. Some of them were airing out their own grievances they have with you for the same problems of ordering X amount of meat or produce and receiving less than the agreed amount, but still paying the full price. I'll tell you this, Brendan, I'll do the podcast with you. Whether you want to do it on David Cuddy, whether you want to do it on James Conway, but it'll be on the condition. It'll be you, me, the person holding the podcast. It'll be the two ladies that you know who I'm on about. It'll be the likes of that man you owe 87,000 to, and we'll take question and answers the week prior to the podcast to make sure anyone who has any questions for you can ask them, and the interviewer can ask the questions to you, and you'll actually have to answer questions this time, not run away from them.